Today we are interviewing Mr. Sunil Kaul, the India country head for BridgeLux. So could you explain what your company focuses on?
So our company is primarily in the business of developing solid-state lighting. Specifically, we work on the LED chip side. Our business model is we manufacture the LED chips and components, and then we work with very closely with our customers who are the fixture manufacturers or the luminaire manufacturers. One way to look at it is, if you look at Intel, they manufacture the microprocessor, and then they work with laptop manufacturers, and then laptop manufacturers sell the laptops. So very similarly, we create the light, the heart of the luminaire, which is the LED component, and so we design it and we manufacture it through manufacturing partnerships that we have in Asia. Our headquarters is in Livermore, which is about 1 hour from San Francisco, California. And so that's where all the design and development and R&D is done. And we're roughly about 300 people over there.
So do you plan to start an R&D center in India?
We not in the immediate future. I think the first steps. So BridgeLux has come to India about 6 months ago, last summer 2011. And we're very pleased in terms of what we've been able to see in terms of the market opportunities. I think realistically probably the first steps that we'll take is more developing an application engineering team, because a lot of the lighting companies in India that are already here, they're traditional lighting companies, and as they move from traditional lighting to solid state lighting, there's a lot of subtleties in terms of how you build these products that are LED based. So I think the first value would be how can we enable our customers in India, and I think the best way we can bring value to them is by helping them in the application engineering space first. We are starting to think about looking at manufacturing in India. It'll probably be 2 phases. The first phase will be more on the LED packaging, so we bring in the LED chips and then we do the component assembly in India. And then maybe over time, depending on the right economics, then we might even bring in the LED chip itself. So that's kind of how we're looking at it. So the first phase, looking at setting up an application engineering team. Second phase would be LED packaging in India, and then the third phase would be the LED chip manufacturing.
So what kind of products do you have? LED arrays, LED chips?
Right, so if you look at the terminology, so the best way to look at it is, so this what you're seeing here is, it's made up of a bunch of squares, and each square is an LED chip. It's a blue LED that converts to white. So we designed, as I said earlier, we designed the LED chip, and then we manufacture them into an array. So an array is basically a integration of a whole bunch of different LED chips into one component, and that's what you're seeing here.
What kind of subdivisions do you have within your product lines?
Subdivisions?
Like what kind of LED arrays or the particular product that you...
Right, so if you look at the markets that we serve, it's anywhere from, if you look at wattages or how many different kinds of products can be built. So on the low end, it would be, say you want to build a 5-watt LED bulb. And a 5-watt LED bulb would replace a traditional 40 to 60 watt incandescent bulb. So the energy savings are obvious. Or if you're doing a CFL, if you took an 18-watt CFL, you could do it with a 5-watt LED. So that's more for consumer-based applications, bulbs and all. At the real high end, if you want to do a high bay, which is lighting that is used in factories, for example. So we're working with one company looking at for one of their factories to install this lighting that typically is at about 13 meters, about 30-40 feet up there in a shed. So that requires a lot of lighting, a lot of intensity. So we have products. This one, for example, this is a 50 watt. What you're seeing. So this can replace anywhere to about 150 watt equivalent of something else. So the 100 watt that I just mentioned, that is a high bay, it could replace a 250 watt typically a high pressure sodium vapor lamp. So you can imagine the energy savings that from 250 I take it down to roughly 1/3 of it. And so our product line is, we've designed them keeping in mind a vast number of applications. So on one end, these are bulbs. On the other end, these are really high end for high factories. And then in between also, so if you look in your department stores, or if you look at office lighting, like even right up here, those are lower wattage. It could be 10, 15, 20 watt type applications. So we have product families that fit that. So in terms of our focus, we are focused on in the retail space. So that would be again for department stores, malls, where they're really looking for high quality light. Jewelry stores. We've done a lot of implementations in Europe where grocery stores, because of the you don't have UV light coming out of these LEDs, so it doesn't destroy food or fabric, which over time with traditional lighting it yellows the fabric and it spoils the food. So that's one sector, the retail industry. In offices, you have these 2x2s, or you have these downlighters. So we have products that fit into that. And then we also have some very interesting products that we built that are designed for street lights. So if you look at, Bangalore has over 4 lakh street lights. And you can imagine the energy savings if you take if a typical one is say 150 watts or 250 watt street light, you could take that down to roughly 50%, maybe even 2/3 of energy. So in a country like India where we're always struggling for power, the fact that you can actually save quite a bit of energy, becomes an immediate thing. So street lights, bulbs, downlighters, 2x2s, and then serving the industrial. So these are factories, offices, retail stores, and then obviously consumer household. Those are all the markets that we serve.
Are there any new technologies in this LED area?
Yeah, so if you look at, we've actually done a press release. If you go back to sometime last year, I believe it was March of 2011, if I remember. So the whole world in LEDs has been working on how do we take cost out of LEDs. So one of the biggest challenges you face is people say the cost is high. And rightfully so, like any new technology as it comes out and evolves, the price curve comes down. It's typically 25-30% a year price erosion that we're seeing. Now, one of the big cost elements as you do manufacturing LED chips is it's built on a substrate that is typically called sapphire, and that sapphire is a significant part of the cost of manufacturing. A lot of the industry has been trying to move towards silicon. Now, the reason people want to move to silicon is because there's large infrastructure of semiconductor chip manufacturing for the last several decades. And because of all that experience in manufacturing using silicon-based substrates, there's a lot of capacity available in the marketplace to build it. The problem has been technically, when you're trying to build LED, what's called the epitaxial layer, on top of silicon, it doesn't work because there's mismatch in the thermal coefficient of expansion. So BridgeLux has been able to solve that issue, and we made an announcement last year. So we believe that'll be extremely disruptive. It's probably another 18 months out before it gets deployed into the marketplace, but we believe that'll take out as much as 50% of the cost of manufacturing.
All right.
So, and also you'll be able to take advantage of the decades of years of experience in semiconductor manufacturing, so people can move over to a traditional way of manufacturing. Today everybody makes them in, let's say it's a 2" by 2" square or a 3" by 3", and you would move to something like 8 inches. So when you move to such large formats, the cost comes down dramatically. And then also, as I said earlier, the entire semiconductor chip industry has been built around silicon. So there's a tremendous amount of automation and high volume manufacturing that's been done. And in anything, as we all know, if you can do things at high volume and automation, the cost comes down. But what's been holding people back is the inability to move and migrate to silicon from sapphire. So we've solved that problem. We hope in the next 18 months or so we should be in the marketplace with it. And I think we'll see a big disruption of how the cost curves look for everything. So we believe that's a big breakthrough for us.
Does this technology, can you use it to, enhance the products for both the industrial and consumer applications, or is it for any particular area?
So the needs are different.
Mhm.
So if you look at one example of what we're looking at today, it's for a paint shop. So in the paint shop, they want very high quality of light because when they're looking at the product, they want to look at any blemishes, any defects. So they need really really high quality of light, the high CRI index as they say, and LED offers that. So it's give me very high quality of light at the right power or the right lighting conditions. In the consumer end, so that's what their needs are. In the consumer end, it's more as you can relate to. I need something equivalent to a 60-watt bulb. They're less picky about the quality of light. They'll want the right color, but not as picky as what we would see, and therefore they won't be willing to pay a big price also. If you spend today 100 rupees for a CFL light, today you look at the typical LED products are almost 3 to 4x of that. So pricing becomes a big factor in the consumer end. In fact, probably the largest factor. In the industrial type application, it's the payback analysis. If I invest a large capex, how long will it take for me to recover my investment? So how people look at the value proposition are different. Consumers purely cost, and industrial application, a lot of it's around what's my payback, what's my ROI. And in the household, we don't look at ROI.
Right. So, what are the key factors that are affecting the influx of LED lighting in India? I mean, we don't see it as it hasn't improved at that much, right? Compared to conventional lighting.
Right.
Like the majority of people are still using conventional lighting.
Right.
So, what is the key factor that is showing this phenomenon?
Yeah, I think it's if I look at the analogy of how India went through the CFL transition, it started with a flood of products coming in, say from China, and there's no standards, there's nothing, and basically you would see a lot of inferior products coming in because everybody thought it's the next thing, and then products didn't work, and you blamed the CFL technology, and the government stepped in, and then specifications started to come in, and then over time the adoption continued, and prices came down. I think LED is probably no different from that standpoint in terms of the barriers. So the barriers are, I've actually encountered where there's some low-cost imports coming in, where after 6 months, 3 months, it didn't work, and it didn't work because maybe they didn't understand the power supply conditions of India, where it can swing from 150 volts to 300 volts. If you look at Europe, or say in the US, it's a very tight, plus or minus 5-10%. Well, it doesn't work like that here. So were the drivers designed, the input, because the drivers designed to handle that sort of thing? In some cases, probably not. So that could have been one or two. So the quality of the products. The second part again is pricing, and I think pricing again is a factor where as the volumes pick up and the prices will come down. From our experience, what we're seeing is that I think there's obviously a very strong understanding of LEDs in India. There are concerns around the cost of it. And that's where I think one of the things that BridgeLux believe that will help the market is actually looking at some innovative business models of how do you implement the product. So for example, what we're doing in the US, for example, with one company there is we work with the utility company. It could be, say, some equivalent of BESCOM. It's called PG&E. So the bulb is manufactured, and in the bulb we put a very inexpensive smart chip. And the bulbs are essentially given away free to the residences. Now what the utility company does is, because this smart chip talks to through software, so in the afternoons when there's peak load, it sends a signal and the load is actually dropped by 15% automatically. Now you and I will not be able to notice that 15% change in lighting, but the grid sees that 15%. So if you're, say, running at say 100, and now I drop it down to 85, that 15% I've just saved. And that 15% savings for the utility company is more than compensates for the cost of giving away the bulb. So that's just an example of innovation around the business model, nothing to do with the technology. So we're in discussions with some people in India in terms of how can we disrupt the industry in terms of coming with some creative business models where the capex factor, where people say it's too expensive, is managed very cleverly. And so there's a few discussions we have going in terms of how could we do that, and BridgeLux and a few other parties that are interested. And so we strongly believe that it's, one, having really strong foundation technology. We were the first company that gave a warranty of 5 years on the LED components. We said 5 years warranty, no questions. And then also so to me that's a given. We buy products because you believe they're good. And if you believe the products are good, you give them good warranty. So we're doing that. So we said we'll give you 5 years warranty. I think as we're doing that, in addition, I think coming up with some creative business models, I think is the other part of it, that in terms of how can you reduce the barrier of entry where people say, this is good enough, let's get going. And then the government obviously plays a good role. They're playing a very strong role in terms of recognizing what they learned from CFLs. It's really, really important for good standards to come out. And I believe, through the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, Dr. Mathur and his team and the industry players, they're coming out with a specification that should hopefully be released. So at least you'll have some specifications that people have to conform to.
So you've got products for both the industry and the general consumers, right? So how do you get your product across to the industry? What kind of marketing strategies do you use?
Right. So we're at one level we're neutral. We, as I said earlier, our customers are the luminaire manufacturers. So if you look at the Indian lighting industry today, and you look at who are those players, it would be anywhere from Havells to Crompton Greaves to Future Lighting to Bajaj. So our model is that we would like to encourage all these lighting companies to work with BridgeLux, and where we can provide them not only the LED component, but also give them the right support in terms of what we call our ecosystem partnerships, meaning when you put something together, all of it has to work. So if you look at what are the key things when you put an LED product together, it's the LED chip, it's the drivers that convert the voltage to constant current. You have the thermals. How do you make sure that thermally the product works well? So those are kind of the three key ingredients that if we can help through our ecosystem partners, because we work with a lot of driver companies in the world, we work with a lot of optics companies, we work with a lot of thermal management companies around the world, and we test their products. We don't necessarily certify them, but we say from our experience, we believe these are some recommended suppliers that you, the lighting company, may want to talk to. And then we help them if they need support with some of those, our ecosystem partners, we make the introductions. And then we can support them along the way. And then by doing that, we ensure that when the lighting company is putting the product together, that all the key components have come together and they're reliable, and the integrity of the product is there. Because if our product, if the LED works, but the driver doesn't work, or the optics don't work, it's still a weak product. And given that it's a new technology, people will say there's something wrong with LED. So we recognize that it's as critical to not only have a good LED product, but it's as critical to make sure that the ecosystem partners around us are strong and they have the ability to support the Indian lighting companies. And so far, it's been going well.
All right. So, is there anything else that you'd like to say?
So I think the other thing is that I've spent some time reading some of the thought leaders that are nothing with LED, and by that I mean people like Nandanil and Pani, right? Just showing them what BridgeLux is trying to do. Or we've had some discussion with some large IT companies here that don't necessarily have anything with LEDs, but they all use lighting. They all use lighting. It's about 20% of everybody's load is for lighting. So, and if you look at where China is, and if you look at where India is, I think what I challenge the Indian industry is to really, the end users of lighting, it's not Bajaj, it's not Havells, it's not Crompton Greaves. It's the end users. These are the factories. These are the IT parks. These are places like that, where if they could be convinced on the value of LED, and if one can show them the right economics, then there's really no reason why they cannot help drive the demand. So rather than waiting for the lighting companies to come forward, I think there's some really good players in the industry that actually are willing to step up. So one of the companies that we're in discussion with, these are large industrial houses that believe in the story. And so I think that is helping this industry. And I think India in general probably has one of the largest energy entitlements on the planet. It's 1 billion people, rapid urbanization, more and more people are moving from villages to cities. I think by the end of this decade, the last report I saw from McKinsey, we will have close to 600 million people in cities. That's a phenomenal number. That's almost twice the population of all of America. And what are they looking for? They're all looking for basic needs. Give me power. Give me a place to stay. So our needs also, we expect a lot more. So as people more and more move to the cities, our expectations as people move into cities is more. Jobs, better infrastructure. And India has to spend close to $1 trillion. In fact, if you just read Pranab Mukherjee was in the US, or maybe still in the US this week, trying to bring money because they have to invest about $1 billion in infrastructure in India. And that's a staggering number, $1 trillion. So, but the good thing is that as we can deploy things like energy savings like LEDs, you're actually helping that trend. Because otherwise you look at the demand is high and the supply, there's a big gap in the supply and demand today. And I think in the next 20 years we will be the number 3 user of energy in the world. So, after Russia, US and China. Coal, we will run out of coal in this country in the next 40 years. And 2/3 of our energy today comes from coal. So it's a pretty scary statistic if you start thinking about that by the time you're my age, there may not be enough coal left. So what are you going to do? Right? So we spend, I think, nuclear is 2%, hydroelectric is 23%, and the balance is thermal, fossil. So, and I think the good thing is the government recognizes it. So my mission with BridgeLux is to come and try to transform the energy landscape. Yes, we obviously want to sell LED chips, but the real journey is transforming the energy landscape. And the way you transform the energy landscape is you bring in solid technology, you have a vision that you share with people that BridgeLux will also bring in long-term manufacturing into this country. We will deploy the right LED technology into India. We will bring it all. We will train the Indians in India. We will set up the whole ecosystem. We will, engineers that come out of schools as we build application labs in India, they start to learn about LED technology. So at the end, we don't have to import products from other countries. And that's one, I think, as a nation, we have to become self-reliant, right from access to the right technology, to the manufacturing of the technology, and then obviously, with the right lighting companies in India. So that's the journey we're on. It's a fun journey. Keep watching us in the next 5-10 years. We should hopefully be able to bring something. It's a much bigger thing than I thought even before I came to India. When I came, I was looking, and now I realize there's such an enormous opportunity to bring change in this country that it's less about dhanda. It's more about a journey. And I think if we can get people to buy into that vision, business will follow. Business will come as a natural byproduct. So that's our